Good morning, guys. So for the next 2 to 3 days, we're going to be focusing on Punnett squares. And that's why it was really important for you to understand what it meant, phenotype, genotype, being dominant, being recessive. Okay? So I'm going to go over it, and it's going to be a little bit easier when we are working on our Punnett square. So for phenotype, I've been telling you it's the physical appearance of an organism. The pH is for physical. So phenotype, the physical appearance of an organism. Okay, then the pH for physical. Okay, so if we go to the word phenotype, we have the pH here, which is physical, pH for physical. Now, for genotype, it is the genes that an organism has. So, the genes that an organism has. Again, we're talking about G for genes. Okay, so we've got that G right here and the G at the beginning of genotype for genes. Now here, for example, we're going to be looking at the alleles. And remember that these alleles are the letters that scientists use in order to represent that specific gene. So for example, if I'm talking about blue eyes, and brown eyes, I know that brown eyes are dominant over blue eyes, so brown eyes would be a capital B, and blue eyes would be a lowercase b. Whenever I'm talking about the phenotype, I'm talking about how that organism is going to look, right? So it's either going to have blue eyes, or it's going to have brown eyes. Okay, that's what the or is. Now, we talked about, these alleles being either dominant, which I have in a capital letter, or recessive, which I have in a lowercase letter. Dominant meaning that it's going to get expressed, right? Recessive, it's not going to get expressed. Only will be expressed or will not be covered up if this dominant allele is not there. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I mean by this. So I printed out, where are they? Okay, some monohybrid cross examples. So in humans, dark hair, and they're already giving me the letters for it. So in humans, dark hair, capital D, is dominant over blonde hair, lowercase d. If a heterozygous dark-haired man would have a son with his blonde-haired wife, what would be the probability that the son would have dark hair like his father? So monohybrid crosses, or monohybrid Punnett squares, are going to show the possibility or the possible offsprings that could be produced. So I'm going to use this Punnett square I have over here, and I'm going to make some notes down over here. Or I'll just move it over here. So that way it stays with your example. It's telling me that the dark hair is dominant over blonde hair. So I'm going to put dark hair, it's capital D, blonde hair is lowercase d. It's telling me that the dad or the man is heterozygous. Hetero meaning different. So I'm going to put dad is heterozygous, so it means that his alleles are going to be capital D, lowercase d. And it says mom is blonde. So mom, because she's blonde, she has to have both lowercase d's. Okay, so I already have the information that I need. So normally what I do is that I put the male on top and the female on the side. So I would put capital D, lowercase d, this is dad. And then I have these alleles, lowercase d, lowercase d for mom. Now here we have a 25%, so this box is worth 25%, this one's worth 25%, this one's worth 25%, and this one's worth 25%. Okay, we have 4 boxes of 25, which are going to give us 100%. Now, in order to complete this Punnett square, what you have to do is you're basically going to pair these letters up like this. So wherever they meet, that's what you're going to pair up. So this capital D is going to go down here. And it's also going to go all the way over here, right? Because it's going to pair up with this one right here. And then this D is going to move this way, and it's also going to pair up with this other D. So that would look like this. So capital D, lowercase d. Capital D, lowercase d. And then here we have a lowercase d and a lowercase d. Same thing with this one. Lowercase d and a lowercase d. So here you have completed your Punnett square. Now, what information are you going to obtain from this? Well, our question was asking, what would the probability be that the son would have dark hair like his father? Well, any organism with a capital D will have dark hair, and in this case, it would be 50% that would have dark hair, and 50% would be blonde. Okay, because we have this genotype now, or this genotype right here. For every Punnett square, you will be giving me the genotype and phenotype. So genotype well, we have 50% capital D, lowercase d, and we have 50% little d, little d. Okay, remember, genotype genes, we're talking about the letters. When I refer to as phenotype, I'm talking about how they're going to look. So remember that dark hair is dominant over blonde hair, which means that the organisms that have a capital D are going to express that dark hair, which means that 50% are going to have brown hair or dark hair. And 50% are going to have blonde hair. Now, remember that for the only way that an organism or a person can have blonde hair is if they don't have a dominant allele, right? So for blonde hair, it can only be little d, little d. But for dark hair, it can be big D, or big D, little d. And in this case, it was only big D, little d. Now we're going to practice a little bit more. There's another, you could call rule, and that is that capital letters should always go first. Okay, always, should always go first, just like we did right here. The second one is that, well, it's not a rule actually, it's just what the Punnett square is. So a Punnett square shows the possible offspring that could be produced by two parents. It is also showing, predicting the possible combinations. And these arrows are just to show you that we are going to be in Punnett squares. You do from the top to the bottom on every square, and then from the left to the right. Now, for a little bit of practice. Okay, so again, I'm going to use the problems that I have here. So number 2 says, in tomatoes, red fruit is dominant over yellow fruit. So we're talking about red fruit, capital R, is dominant over yellow fruit. And because it's yellow, they're saying that that one is recessive. That one's going to be a lowercase r. If a homozygous red fruit is crossed with a yellow fruit plant, what are the expected genotypic and phenotypic ratios of the F1 generation? Okay, so let's just stop there at crossed with a yellow plant. What are going to be the expected genotypes and phenotypes for the first generation, right? So when these plants have a baby, what is going to be the genotype and phenotype of their offspring? So we're going to write the information right here, really small. So we know that red fruit is capital R and yellow fruit is lowercase r. Now if you see, my alleles are the same. I'm not using R for red, Y for yellow, because we're talking about the same plant. We're talking about the same tomato plant. And then they tell me that a homozygous red fruit, so that is homo meaning the same, for red fruit, which would be capital R, is going to be crossed with a yellow plant. Because yellow fruit is recessive, we would have to do little r. Okay, and now you're going to do the crossing. Now remember our arrows from top to bottom, capital letters first. So we have a capital R. And this one would also go all the way over here. Same thing with this one. And same thing over here. And then we would do the side. Lowercase r, lowercase r, lowercase r, lowercase r. So now we have our Punnett square done. Now we need to know what's the genotype and what's the phenotype. So genotype. They all have capital R's and lowercase r's. That would give me 100% capital R, lowercase r. Now for your phenotype, it has the capital R, which is dominant, over the little r, which is recessive. So that means that the yellow color is not going to be expressed, so then it's going to be red. So red fruit %, because all of them have that dominant allele present. So they are all going to be red. Now I'm going to give you this one. So I did 2 and you're going to do 1, and then I'm going to explain your independent practice. Okay, this one looks like what Mendel did. A heterozygous tall pea plant, so heterozygous tall pea plant is crossed with a short pea plant. What are the expected genotypic and phenotypic ratios for this cross? Okay, so tall is going to be dominant over short. So I'm just going to use the T for tall. So it's telling me it's hetero, meaning that they're going to be different. So I'm going to have a combination of an uppercase and a lowercase. So I'm going to have capital T, lowercase t. And then a short pea plant, that means it's recessive. So it's little t, little t. So now I'm going to move that to our Punnett square. And I'm going to have you do the rest. So tall, that's going to be capital T. And short, it's going to be lowercase t. And they're telling me that they were crossed with a heterozygous tall parent, and it was crossed with a short one. So these two were crossed. Okay, so what am I going to have to do? So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to work on this one. And I just want you to have the Punnett square completed. So I'm going to have you pause the video and then complete your Punnett square. Okay, so you've taken your 3 minutes to work on your Punnett square. I'm going to guide you through how you should have done your Punnett square. So it's telling me that it's a heterozygous tau, meaning that they're going to have different alleles. So I'm going to have capital T, lowercase t. And it's telling me it got crossed with a short pea plant, which I know it's recessive, lowercase t, lowercase t. And now I cross it. Remember, capital letters always go first, and then our lowercase. Alright, I'm done with my Punnett square. Now, I know they're asking me for my genotype. So my genotype, remember, it's the letters. I've got 2 possibilities. Capital T, lowercase t, and lowercase t, lowercase t. So I've got capital T, lowercase t, and I still need to give a percentage. Little t, and I still need to give a percentage. So the percentage for capital T, lowercase t, we've got 1, 2, 2 out of 4, that is 50%. And then I have a 50% for my little t. For your phenotype, how they're going to look, we've got either it's going to be a tall plant or a short plant. Let me move it up. Okay, it's either a tall plant or a short plant. So I've got tall is dominant over short, capital T, so I've got 2 plants that are going to be tall. That is 50% are going to be tall, and 50% are going to be short. So what you're going to be doing today is you're going to be practicing this over and over, and that's what you're going to do also tomorrow. You're going to practice over and over, and even on Monday, you're going to keep practicing. So, just to review really quick, phenotype is how they look, the appearance. Genotype is basically the genes, so the letters, the alleles we're using. If it's a dominant trait, it's going to go in a capital letter. If it's a recessive trait, it's going to go in a lowercase letter. Capital letters should always go first. And then the Punnett square is going to show the possible offspring that could be produced by both parents. So these are crosses basically, and these are called monohybrid crosses because we're only looking at one specific trait. Okay. Now, for your independent practice, you have monohybrid Punnett squares. And first I've provided you with a reading. And of course, when you get this one's going to be in PDF. I printed it out so that I could show you. But I've made it so that you can edit it. So it's a reading, and then you're going to have the opportunity to fill in these blanks. So genetics is the study of, and if we go over here, it says, genetics is termed as the study of heredity and how traits and offspring are based upon those of the parents. So genetics is the study of heredity. So you're going to type in heredity. Okay. Now, if for whatever reason you're not allowed to type in, there is absolutely no problem, guys. Get a piece of paper, write number 1, heredity, number 2, blank, number 3, blank, right? It's okay. Now, once you're done with these right here, so it's 14, I think it's 15 or 16 blanks, it's going to take you to Punnett squares, okay? And this is where you're going to need your notes that we took today so that you can use it as an exemplar. Okay, for the following pairs of traits, conduct a monohybrid cross to determine the genotype and phenotype of the offspring. So I'm going to do number 1 with you. Dominant trait is B for brown hair, recessive trait, lowercase b for blonde hair. Possible genotypes, possible phenotypes. Okay, and they've already even set up the cross for us, so we don't even have to, write down the letters. So now we only need to cross, and remember that we go from up to down and then from side to side. Okay, so remember that capital letters are going to go first, so capital B, and then we have a capital B right here that's going to go this way, capital B, and capital B. And then we fill in with our lowercase b, and then lowercase b, then move this b all the way over here, and then this b all over here. And you're done with your Punnett square. Now it's asking you for the possible genotypes and possible phenotypes. So we've got actually 3 genotypes. We've got capital B, lowercase b, and lowercase b. Now, when it comes to genotypes, you're going to put capital B, and that was how many? 25%. And then you're going to have capital B, lowercase b, and that is 2 out of 4, that is 50%. And then you're going to have lowercase b, and that is, again, 25%. And that's it, genotypes. Remember, genotypes are the letters, the alleles. Phenotype is how the offspring is going to look. So it's telling me that the dominant trait is brown hair, recessive trait is blonde hair. So brown hair, how many do we have? How many have a capital B? So that would be 1, 2, 3. Okay. So 3 offsprings have a capital B or a dominant trait. That means their hair is going to be brown. So that is 75%. That means that the only one that's left with a recessive trait is our last offspring, and that's going to be blonde hair. And that's 25%. And then you move on to the next one. So for this, you're going to have 1 for monohybrid crosses, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, yep, 6 practice problems, okay, that you are going to be completing. Well, that's it, guys, for today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. If you have any questions, please message me. I do understand this is a little confusing and a little bit difficult to understand, especially because I cannot be walking around right now, monitoring as you're working and fixing your mistakes. So if for whatever reason you're like, you know what, this does not look right, then message me, right? Send me a picture of what you're doing and then I'll guide you. Really quick, I suggest you write or draw in your arrows. It does help whenever I'm filling in my Punnett square. And then if you even needed, right, you can put 25%, 25%, 25%, and 25%. Okay, that way it's easier for you to fill in this area. If you have any pending assignments, I sent you messages. Please get those done, and just have a great afternoon.